where we can close the streets one time a month so the kids can take ownership of the streets. They play games, they draw, they can ride their bikes, and it's an initiative to encourage them to walk and ride to school rather than get dropped off by the cars.
As volunteers, we undertake some training to make sure that we can set up the street safely for the event. And then on the day, we get up a little bit early and set up all the signs. And then during the event, we make sure that everything is working as it's planned. And also we give directions to people who might have been planning to drive through on the day.
It's been fantastic to see how much the community have embraced it. The children really love being out on the street and having that opportunity to play before and after school. The parents really enjoy it, and we've had some really great feedback about the number of people who are using active transport to come to and from the school.
On the day, I personally have seen a lot of parents coming together. They are having chit-chat, they are having a coffee. It's creating an environment for the parents and kids together. They can spend some time, and community as they can come together. At the same time, they are talking about the physical exercises and they are talking about the sustainability. It gives a lot more exposure to the kids.
I get a lot of satisfaction out of just being one person in the team that makes this happen once a month. I think the community gets a lot out of it, and it's a great atmosphere. It's like a mini festival. There's chalk all over the road. It's just a lot of fun.
In Merri-bek, we now have a 4-bin waste service. All households need to separate mixed recycling, glass recycling, food and garden organics, and general rubbish. This will help reduce the amount of waste we send to landfill and improve the quality of recyclables in Victoria. Glass bottles and jars now go in your new glass recycling bin. Lids must be firmly attached. Loose lids go in your general rubbish bin. Steel tins, aluminium cans and foil, paper and cardboard, and plastic bottles and containers go in your mixed recycling bin. Food scraps and garden clippings go in your food and garden organics bin. You can use paper towels to wrap your food waste. Put your glass bottles and jars, food scraps and mixed recycling in the bin loose, not in bags. Plastic bags and other items that can't be reused or recycled go in your general rubbish bin. This includes kitty litter, animal droppings, old textiles and nappies. General rubbish should be bagged or wrapped. Update your recycling knowledge today. Learn what goes in each bin by visiting merri-bek.vic.gov.au/recycling-guide.
Hi, I'm Adam Pulford, Mayor at Merri-bek City Council, and today I'm at the Faulkner Leisure Centre. In April last year, we closed the doors here to make way for the first stage of a huge $36.8 million redevelopment. We listened to the community and we're upgrading the centre to make it modern and more accessible and sustainable. So come, let's check it out. I'm here in the shell of the new 50-metre outdoor pool. The pool will have 8 lanes and can be split into 2 with a unique float-up divider. It'll be the perfect spot to get your swim in or to cool down when we reopen next summer. Good evening, councillors, members of the gallery, and to our viewers live streaming tonight's meeting. Apologies for the brief late start. We've had a couple of councillors having tech issues and a couple of apologies this evening due to illness. My name is Councillor Adam Pulford. I'm the Mayor of Merri-bek City Council and the chairperson for tonight's council meeting for planning and related matters. It's my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's meeting. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're meeting on the lands of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people and pay my respects to their elders past and present. The Wurundjeri are the traditional custodians of these lands and waterways and contribute so much to the life of our community. I also want to acknowledge any other First Nations community members who may be listening in. This council meeting is being recorded and web streamed live to council's website and Facebook. This recording will also be available as video on demand. Gallery attendees are advised they'll be recorded during the meeting. A reminder that as councillors, we will act in accordance with the Councillor Code of Conduct, which will support the principles of leadership and good governance that secures public confidence in the office of councillor. In the event of an emergency, We may be required to take action to ensure everyone's safety. For members of the gallery and councillors in person, please follow directions issued by council staff and security officers. Thank you everyone for your understanding. I'd like to introduce the other councillors in attendance tonight. We'll begin with those in person. So we have Councillor Mark Riley.
Hi there.
We have Councillor Oscar Yildiz.
Good evening, everyone.
And we have Councillor Monica Hart. Yeah, we're good. And so online, we have the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Lambros Tapanos.
Good evening, everyone.
Councillor Angelica Panopoulos.
Everyone.
And Councillor Anna-Olivia Carley-Hannon.
Good evening.
We and the people online have had permission to attend tonight's meeting online. We also have Councillor Helen Davidson with permission to attend online, and understand that Councillor Davidson's just running a little bit late. We've had apologies from Councillor Sue Bolton and Councillor Helen Pavlidis, and that's the 10 of us councillors. Next to me, I have Phil Priest, who's the Group Manager of City Development. We have members of the Urban Planning team with us, and we also have members of our governance team to make sure tonight runs smoothly. So I've gone through the apologies, so we'll move on to the disclosures of conflicts of interest. Councillors, are there any conflicts of interest to declare on the items in the agenda? Great. Item number 4, the confirmation of minutes of previous meetings. Councillors, could I please have a motion for the confirmation of the minutes of the council meeting for planning related matters held on the 26th of June 2024? Councillor Yildiz to move. Seconder? Councillor Hart, all those in favour? And I can declare that carried. Before we move on to the next items on our agenda, I'll outline how our meeting will run this evening. For the items in relation to planning permit applications, the relevant planner will introduce the report and officer recommendations. There'll be a chance then for objectors to make their submission, and after that time, the applicant will be given the opportunity to speak. If you're making a submission, please clearly state your name for the record. You're requested to present viewpoints clearly and concisely on why you support or oppose a planning application. Please note there is a limit of 3 minutes for each person speaking. So we'll move on to the reports. There's 3 reports this evening. The first is our City Development Activity Report for the June quarter this year. Councillors, could I please have a motion? Councillor Riley to move, and you're moving the officer rec. Is there a seconder? Councillor Yildiz, Councillor Riley.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Yildiz, for seconding. I'm really pleased to be able to sort of speak briefly to this report. It's showing some really good results for our city and the planning department. It's worth a reading if you're into this kind of technicality, but the thing I want to convey is that it's a really good result across many of the measures and the key indicators that we have for our planning applications. We are often bettering the average of other councils across other like metropolitan areas. So that's a credit to our team. We have seen a reduction in the number of overall planning applications, so that is good in terms of the capacity for the team to be able to meet the demand and actually process things in a really timely way. We are doing very well at the VCAT hearings in terms of getting outcomes that are quite reflective of council's wishes and concerns. So on so many measures, this report really indicates we are hitting the mark often. And you can also read about the number of applications that the state government are taking over from us as well, which, you know, for me as a councillor and as a council, it's tried to address these issues and to have really good policies, well, as much as you can in this complicated planning system. Having the minister step in too frequently and too often, and either taking things to VCAT, but also just deciding those decisions is something that I think is detrimental to local government and democracy generally, because local governments are much better at consulting and engaging their communities on so many levels compared to the state. And I'll put my flag in the ground about that, and I'll take a lot to move me on that one. There needs to be a big shift there, so I think that's a bit detrimental. But otherwise, many of the other indicators are looking good. So I just want to thank the team and all concerned in that, and the councillors for all the work they're doing about being quite decisive about which things should or shouldn't go to VCAT as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Councillor Ute, the seconder.
Just very quickly, probably not the most popular department because it's quite challenging what they have to deal with day in, day out. But I just want to thank the staff. I mean, Philip Priest, Penny, I know you've just come on board, but Philip Priest, Mark Hughes, to the team, they really do have their hands full. The amount of work that goes into planning, it's definitely the most challenged department of any council. But our guys do a pretty good job, and I just want to congratulate the staff because they're the ones that put all the time and effort in, and they're the ones that are at VCAT. They're the ones fighting on behalf of us via the residents. So just want to acknowledge the staff and thank them for their hard work. They probably think it goes unnoticed, but it does go very much noticed. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ute. Do any other councillors wish to speak to this item? We might move on to a vote. All those in favour? And I can declare that carried unanimously. Now on to the second item of our agenda, item 5.2, which is 760A to 774 Sydney Road, Brunswick. It's an amended planning permit application. So I'll ask Ryan Hay, the planning coordinator, to present this report.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, councillors. As was just mentioned, this is an application at number 760A to 774 Sydney Road in Brunswick. The application is seeking to amend the planning permit for the construction of a multi-storey building containing dwellings, retail and basement car parking. It includes the use of the land for dwellings and includes a reduction of the car parking requirement, and it is at decision stage. In terms of the site and surrounds, this site is located on the eastern side of Sydney Road, just south of Mitchell Street. What this image is depicting is the area of the site that the existing approval applies to, in the green, and the image, including the blue, is the site that is included as part of this proposed amendment to the planning permit, and that pink border is the overall subject site. Looking to the planning controls, this site is zoned Commercial 1 zone and it sits adjacent to a general residential zone to the east. The parking overlay is relevant to the site, as is the design and development overlay Schedule 18, and also the development contributions plan overlay applies. In terms of the strategic policy setting, this site is identified for significant housing growth as it's located in the Brunswick Activity Centre, and there is significant change expected for this area, and this site's also located in the principal public transport network. The controls envisaged for the site under the design and development overlay includes an 8 to 11 metre street wall height, a 5 metre upper level setback, as well as a 1-to-1 parapet lower than horizontal line on the opposite side of the Sydney Road requirement, and then it includes a 19 metre building height. Preferred height. This table just includes a comparison between the existing approval and what is proposed. Most notably, the number of dwellings has increased from 61 to 72. The building remains as a 7-storey building. However, there is a marginal increase in the height of the parapet of the building as measured from the centre of the site to Sydney Road. That is an 800mm increase. Overall, the maximum height, though, from the top of the building has been reduced. Looking to the street wall, it includes an 11-metre street wall to Sydney Road. In terms of the car parking provision, that has increased. So we go from 61 to 93 for this proposal, and that then reduces the reduction of car parking sought, which is from 29 to 21. Bicycle parking has increased from 35 to 91, and the retail floor space has also increased from 576 to 642 square metres, and that is divided into 4 tenancies at ground floor. This image just is a depiction of the proposal in the 3D render as viewed from Sydney Road. As we can see, it's broken up to some various different materials and colours as it's viewed from Sydney Road, just to give it a bit more of an identity across the site. During public consultation, this application received 2 objections, with the main issues being raised around car parking, laneway access, traffic and road safety. A planning information and discussion meeting wasn't held due to the number of objections. However, these objectors were contacted individually by the relevant planning officer to discuss their concerns. Looking to the key considerations, the increases in building height and upper level setback non-compliances are minimal and are considered acceptable as they relate to architectural features and design detail. The rear setbacks non-compliances ensure that impacts to sensitive interfaces are acceptable and equitable development opportunities have been considered. The street wall, as mentioned before, complies with the relevant requirement, and the materials and appearance of this building are of high quality. The ESD provisions are above best practice, and the provision of adaptable and accessible apartments also exceeds the minimum requirements. On-site amenity concerns relate to some overshadowing of communal open space, which is considered acceptable in this instance, and overlooking concerns to the dwellings at 4 Mitchell Street are sought to be addressed through conditions of the recommendation. It is recommended that a notice of decision to grant an amended planning permit be issued, subject to key amended conditions requiring overlooking details. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. We have no objectors who've indicated that they wish to speak this evening, so I now call upon the permit applicant or their representative to make a submission. So we've got Stefan D'Souza from Ratio Consultants. Welcome, Stefan. Just make sure the light screen.
Is that working? Hear me all right?
We can hear you okay, and you can hear out there? Yeah, great. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mayor, and good evening all. Thank you for taking the time tonight. My name is Stefan D'Souza, Town Planner at Ratio Consultants. Firstly, on behalf of Ratio, Freeman White Architects, who were the architects on this project, and our clients, we want to thank Council's Planning Department, in particular Alex Osborne and his team. This process has been incredibly collaborative, and we have truly appreciated the approach that Alex and his team have taken throughout the entire 12 to 14-month life cycle of this application. We've had a number of ongoing discussions with Alex throughout every step of this application, which has proved fruitful in a smooth process and obtaining council officer support. I'd also like to thank Ryan. Whilst only becoming involved late in the piece, Ryan has been very generous with his time and thorough throughout discussions building up until tonight. Without going over all the details of the application, I will just turn your minds to some key points. The proposed development now results in an outcome that is far superior to the original decision to which we are amending. The architectural response results in a design outcome that is respectful of the industrial heritage of the area through a use of varying materials in reds, greys and orange, and also results in a far more visually appealing and interesting outcome as compared to the original development, which is shown at figures 1 and 2 of the officer report, page 31 of tonight's meeting agenda. The additional landscaping along the streetscape facade and throughout the development, material variation and interesting architectural elements all make this a development that will stand proudly along Sydney Road. Furthermore, the original application was approved at a time prior to the better apartment design standards and resulted in a development that would be unlikely to be entertained with today's standards. As identified within the council report, this proposal results in a plethora of Clause 58 apartment standards demonstrating high levels of compliance, that including natural ventilation, living kitchen and bedroom dimensions, storage, windows, and room depths, all ensuring a high quality level of internal amenity and usability for future residents. Communal outdoor space is provided via an internal garden totaling 372 square metres, which exceeds the minimum requirement of 210 square metres, and also allows for natural passive surveillance of the area. The development also provides high levels of amenity in other areas, including balconies that are predominantly east, west, or north facing, and all exceed minimum dimension requirements. Once again, I'd like to thank Alex Osborne and the rest of the planning team for their collaborative approach taken to this application. We again reiterate that this is 12 months of work and collaboration that has gone into this application. Thank you for your collective time tonight.
That was very well timed, Stefan. Thank you. Are there any questions from councillors? Yeah. Councillor Hart, just make sure your mic is on.
It is. Yeah. It's not a question. I just wanted to comment. It's not usual that we hear, I think, a developer come to the table and talk so highly and so well of that collaborative process. And as I sit here, I just welcome that. I think that shows in terms of the application. Obviously, we'll discuss it, but I think that collaboration is very evident.
Thank you.
In this application. And I think to know that how well as a developer you benefit from that collaboration and exchange. That's what we want to hear. Yeah. And that's where we get good outcome.
Of course. And
that's when we don't have to go to bed.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hart. Are there any other questions or comments from councillors? Thanks, Stefan.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So now I'd seek a motion from a councillor. To councillor seek to move? Yep, so Councillor Udis to move, Councillor Hart to second. Great. Councillor Udis?
Just very quickly, when we've got a massive shortage of housing, the fact that the applicants worked with our staff collaboratively, aesthetically the place looks fantastic, and they've met all the requirements. The only disappointing thing for me is probably the parking. If anything, I wanted to increase parking, not decrease it, but I can appreciate the reasons why they've done that. But yeah, I think this is probably one of the better developments that we've seen come before us, in particular over the last 12 months or so. So I just want to say, yeah, I appreciate what's been presented, and I think it's a good application.
Thank you, Councillor Udis. Councillor Hart as seconder.
Yeah, I'd endorse those comments, and it's not often that I sit in front of something and feel and have a sense that this is a really, really good development and use of the space. It's got quite a very large frontage onto Sydney Road. There, I think what's been developed with this latest plan, the aesthetics are good. That interface with Sydney Road, the sensitivity to the environment really shows me in this application. And I'm impressed, I think, by that ability to actually buy an extended parcel of land, and by that you come up with a hell of a lot more wins than was there in the first place. And part of those wins is obviously an overall increase in the development, but I'm pleased to see that there's been a rejigging, I guess, of the 1 and 2 bedroom, but you've extended the number of 3 bedroom properties, and I think we need that. That's been often that's missing, so I'm really pleased to see that. The increase for bike provision, I read it as an increase for car provision, is my reading of that. I think I'm corrected there, yeah. So I think there's just so many strengths, and where we've had to trade off, I mean, the overall height has come down. There's part of, I think the parapet's higher, but that's part, and it's part of the design, and it's part of, you know, the vertical elements that are built in. I think the trade-off around the front setbacks, where you've got the floating, again, part of design, the floating balconies, that to me is where we've got a good way to look at where do we trade off. The ESD is high on this development, and also only two objections is significant, and the fact that you're able to look at how do you mitigate the overshadowing and the concerns around Mitchell Street. I think it's a very, very strong application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hart. Are there any other councillors that wish to speak to this? I just also want to welcome Councillor Davidson. Councillor Davidson, you want to check your mic is working?
Can you hear me?
Yes, great.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've just heard from the mover and the seconder. Any other councillors wish to contribute to debate? We'll move on to a vote. All those in favour? And I can declare that carried unanimously. Congratulations. And I'll invite Ryan to share with us the next steps from here.
The Council has decided to issue a notice of decision to grant an amended planning permit for the construction of a multi-storey building containing dwellings, retail and basement car parking, use of the land for dwellings and reduction of the car parking requirement, subject to the conditions contained within the officer recommendation. Following the issue of the notice of decision, both the applicant and all objector parties will receive a copy of the notice of decision to grant a planning permit. Objectors will have 21 days to appeal Council's decision at the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal. In the event that no appeal is lodged at VCAT, a planning permit will be issued. If a permit is issued, the applicant has 60 days from the date of issue to appeal any conditions on the permit. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. We'll move on to the next item on our agenda. So that's item 5.3, which is 2 to 12 Wilkinson Street in Brunswick. This is a ministerial application. So this decision is about Council's position putting forward to the Minister for decision, rather than a decision on the application itself. I'll ask Rob Wallace, Senior Urban Planner, to present the report.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, councillors. Good evening, gallery. The matter before you relates to a ministerial application to construct, or for the construction of a 7-storey residential building comprising 39 affordable dwellings and a reduction of statutory car parking located at 2 to 12 Wilkinson Street in Brunswick. The Department of Transport and Planning has referred the application to Merri-bek City Council for comments and a formal position on the proposal. Highlighted in red, the subject site is currently a council-owned car park in Brunswick, accessed from Rosser Street to the west and Wilkinson Street to the south. The surrounding area is experiencing significant change, with new apartment developments located on abutting sites. To the west, across Rosser Street, a permit has been approved for a development ranging between 9 and 11 stories. To the south, across Wilkinson Street, is a completed 6-storey apartment development. To the east is a variety of retail premises located along Sydney Road. The application has been lodged with the Department of Transport and Planning pursuant to clause 5323 of the Merri-bek Planning Scheme, which relates to significant residential development with an affordable housing component. The Minister for Planning is the responsible authority and notified Council of the application in June. Public notice has yet to commence as of this meeting, but is expected to occur in the coming weeks. The Minister for Planning is responsible for receiving and considering objections and external referrals. Clause 53.23 exempts an application from third-party appeal rights, meaning the decision made by the Minister for Planning will be the final decision on the proposal. Council will need to inform the Minister for Planning of its formal position, which is where this application is at currently. The Minister for Planning can make a decision on the proposal or refer the proposal for advice to the Standing Advisory Committee prior to making a decision. The subject site is located within the Commercial 1 zone. There's also a design and development overlay present on the subject site, which provide built form guidance. Permission is required for use of the land as accommodation, buildings and works, and a reduction of car parking. With respect to the strategic policy setting, the subject site is within the Brunswick Activity Centre and is in an area that seeks significant housing growth. The design and development overlay that applies to the site outlines discretionary built form controls, which are a preferred maximum height of 15 metres, or between 4 and 5 stories, preferred street wall heights of between 7 and 10 metres, and preferred upper level setbacks that seek to maintain a minimum setback of 5 metres from the site boundary, as well as adopting a 1-to-1 setback ratio of vertical height to horizontal distance from the opposite side of an abutting road. With respect to the site history, the site is currently under council ownership and is to be sold specifically to facilitate a social and affordable housing development. Requirements for the delivery of social and affordable housing are conditions on the sale of land, including obtaining planning approvals and the timely commencement of works. Numerous pre-application meetings have previously been held to explore the design response for the site. The proposal comprises the construction of a 7-storey building consisting of 39 dwellings, 100% of which is to be provided as social housing. The 4 ground floor dwellings will have small retail components and will comprise Soho dwellings or small home office dwellings indicated in the image to the left on the screen. There is no on-site car parking proposed. 40 bicycle spaces are proposed and are located within a central bike storage area. A significant component of this application relates to the commitment to provide 100% of the 39 completed dwellings for social housing, which is an exemplary outcome with substantial community benefit. It involves a land contribution from council, significant investment from Homes Victoria, and a strong partnership with Merri-bek Affordable Housing and Haven Home Safe as co-owners of the completed building. As part of the completed development, housing will be prioritised for people who live and work in Merri-bek. The provision of social and affordable housing is broken down into being 100% social housing provided for 30 years, funded by Homes Victoria, after which conditions seeking the entering into a Section 173 agreement will require 85% of the completed dwellings to be used as affordable or social housing in perpetuity, of which 50% of that 85% must be used for social housing. Other key considerations of this proposal are that the proposal is Clause 58 compliant, providing good internal amenity for residents. It provides for 77% of dwellings to be accessible dwellings, in excess of the baseline planning scheme expectation, which seeks 50% accessible dwellings. The provision of no on-site car parking is supported, with the provision of 40 on-site bike parking spaces exceeding the planning scheme requirement of 12 spaces. The proposed development can be visually improved to ensure that a balance of robust street walls and recessive upper levels is achieved. The proposal results in additional shadowing to Wilkinson Street at 10 a.m. on the equinox. However, this is balanced with public realm improvements and the substantial community benefit offered by the proposal. Improvements to the public realm via in-street plantings and construction of some additional curbing can be made as part of the development, and conditions will also require that the ground floor Soho dwellings maintain a commercial component and are not used as bedrooms associated with the dwellings to ensure active frontages to Wilkinson Street and Rosser Street is maintained. With respect to ESD outcomes, conditions of the recommendation require the development to commit to a 7.5-star NatHERS average rating. Taking all that into consideration, it is recommended that Council's submission to the Minister for Planning be that a planning permit be issued for the development and use of land for a multi-storey building comprising 39 social housing dwellings and associated small office home office spaces on ground floor, and a reduction of statutory car parking requirement to 0 at 2 to 12 Wilkinson Street, Brunswick, subject to the conditions set out in the recommendation, chiefly changes to the external appearance, materials and finishes of the buildings as depicted in submitted sketch plans, and the provision of a public works plan that seeks to improve public interfaces and provide for on-street planting. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. I'll now call upon the permit applicant or representative to make a submission. So we've got Kerry O'Neill, who's the chair of Merri-bek Affordable Housing. We also have Trudy Ray here from Haven Home Safe. Welcome, Kerry. Hi, Trudy.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors, and thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight. As Chair of Merri-bek Affordable Housing, it is my pleasure to introduce councillors to Ms Trudy Ray, who will speak to you this evening in support of the planning submission for affordable housing at Wilkinson Street, Brunswick. And we note the Council will be lodging the submission with the Department of Transport and Planning in relation to a proposed approval for the development. MAH deeply values our partnership with Haven Home Safe, a registered housing association. Haven will build and subsequently manage the 39 new social housing units at Wilkinson Street, designed by leading Australian architects, MGS, and designed, I should say, to optimise safe, affordable housing for local people close to work, transport and services in the city of Merri-bek. As CEO of Haven Home Safe, Trudy leads a highly reputable not-for-profit organisation managing over 2,000 affordable homes in Victorian regional and urban communities, 900 of which are new homes completed since 2012. We look forward to your support for this important project. Trudy will now briefly speak to the project's key attributes. Thank you, Trudy.
Great,
Thanks, Carrie. Welcome, Trudy.
Thank you so very much. Thank you, Carrie, and thank you very much for your time tonight. Really appreciate it. This social housing SOHO proposal is really quite exemplary to what we can offer local governments in terms of what can be achieved when quality and innovative social housing developments can be in place. There's absolutely significant need for social and community housing within Victoria more broadly, but particularly for this community. And this proposal does signify the ability to bring housing solutions to table when working in partnership across all levels of government. But we don't just build housing, we absolutely pride ourselves on building communities and delivering better futures for all people through the quality housing and connected communities in which we support people to not only live but to thrive. This proposal will do exactly that. These 39 apartments in a location that is incredibly well connected with local services, transport, employment, education, and also provides an opportunity for those residents to pursue an enterprise through a dedicated street-facing space is a really exciting opportunity and a genuinely innovative way to ensure that we can design social and affordable housing solutions in a very productive space. It also means for that 39 people that they will have a safe and secure property in a very vibrant and inclusive community and a neighbourhood that will continue to assist in their wellbeing and enable them to grow, learn and thrive. We've worked really closely with Merri-bek Council and we are in agreement on all the conditions that have been listed. It's also worth mentioning that these properties of 39 apartments, which will provide a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom units, is a really deliberate approach. There is many housing cohorts needed across the continuum. We absolutely agree with that, but this is around the demand across the VHR in which we work across, and for this area of Melbourne, single people housing is absolutely required. We've been in conversation with the projects who you have engaged with at your Saxon Street site and believe there are a lot of synergies with their evidence-based and people-focused approaches to public spaces, and we're going to work with them on our SOHO proposal. We will continue to develop a program to support those continuous outcomes for public-facing spaces so they're continuously activated. So I probably will leave it there, but I just really thank you for your time tonight.
Thanks, Trudy and Carrie. We just might give councillors an opportunity to ask any questions or make any comments. Councillors, are there any questions or comments for our applicants? Yeah, Councillor Hart.
Yeah, just a brief one, I think more for the listeners, just in terms of this is an approval not coming to council as such, but going direct to the minister, which isn't something that council necessarily favours. And to have it happening from a housing provider, I think it's probably, I mean, I see our role as to be accountable to the community in what we're doing. So it would be perhaps useful to explain why this application is going direct to the minister and it's not the council who will be deciding in this case.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. Great question. And I absolutely understand the council's role within community. I was once a councillor at City of Greater Bendigo, so very much understand that. For us, it's really about speed to market, and we are absolutely tied with the funding deed with the state government. The sooner we can get this sod turned, the better for us, because the funding deed only has a timeline on it. So, whilst I appreciate that that councils would like to have a lot more control on this, we need to fast track in order to be able to turn the property around, because our funding deed timelines are getting quite restricted.
Any other questions from or comments from councillors? Councillor, did you want? Oh, okay, so cool. So just for the applicants, any final things? No. All right. Thanks. Thank you both.
Thanks, teacher.
So we have a question for an officer. So Councillor Riley.
Yeah, I just wanted to check around the provisions. The original application didn't meet the Design Excellence scorecard, but I'm just wondering, they've been addressed to some degree in the report, but I'm just checking whether in fact I think there's a requirement that the ESD provisions be met. They're already meeting the accessibility and public contribution estimates, but the fourth one around the building materials is unclear from my reading of the report whether that will be met through the amendments that we're putting through in our recommendation tonight. I just want that clarified, please.
Yeah, sure, Councillor Riley, and through the Mayor. So with the conditions included in the officer recommendation, the recommendation before Council is that the proposal, if supported, would meet the Design Excellence scorecard.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to, Councillor Riley's on his feet, so wishing to move the officer rec.
Well, on that response, I'm more than happy to get on my feet and move this motion.
Yeah, so just wait for
seconder?
it.
Yep.
Yeah, seconder. Councillor Carly Hannon to second, so Councillor Riley to speak.
Thanks, Councillor Carly Hannon, for seconding. This is rather an historic planning application for me. I was involved in the establishment of Merri-bek affordable housing back in 2016-17, and unfortunately, you know, it's taken 6 or 7 years to get to this point. And I don't particularly share the view that we were going to hold it up any longer. I am conscious it's taken us this long to get to this point, but I would have thought this would have go through tonight fairly expeditiously. Well, I certainly hope it would have. Look, putting that aside, we set up Merri-bek affordable housing to hold the land on our behalf of the Merri-bek community, and if ever that land should come back to or not stay in the hands of the housing provider, Merri-bek affordable housing or Haven Home Safe or whoever they might have contracts with, it would always come back to the people of Merri-bek. By contrast, you might have noticed Burundara had an incident this week where their similar application on the railway line in Burundara fell over because they couldn't transfer the land or have some deal. Luckily, we've got Merri-bek affordable housing, so we can do this kind of thing. Nevertheless, it's still quite complicated, and at the end of the day, I would have preferred us to have delivered this without having to have the state government come in behind us. The reason why we set up Merri-bek affordable housing was because of state governments and because of federal government's withdrawal from the housing in the 90s. And we were left to the point where councils needed to start to step up. Unfortunately, now they're starting to step up because things are so bad, they have to now come in and help us out and do this. So at the end of the day, it's a partnership and we're going to get a result. But it's with some mixed feelings because that's not why we did this. Anyway, putting that aside, I'm very happy with the application, getting 7 stories, all of these apartments that we're getting. I think it's total of how many, Phil? Just remind me. It's 30-something, I forgot. 39 apartments. They're all social housing. That's a great outcome for our community. It's going to be in an ideal location on the corner of Rosser and Wilkinson behind Lamanna Fruit and Veg, or not far from the hardware store there, and between the railway line and Brunswick Station. So it's incredibly well located to public transport. There are going to be 2 car shares nearby while we're going to have 0 parking there. I think that's a great outcome for Brunswick. We're going to have fewer cars on the road, less congestion, and people can still get on their bikes close to really good tram, bus and bike routes. So we've got the shared path, Victoria Street, which is getting an improvement in this coming year for bike lanes and so on. So there's going to be a lot of good amenity for these residents. It's also going to give us some commercial space, and I'm pushing time, but I just want to actually finish by saying that it's really exciting to see after 6 or 7 years, we're actually finally getting a project through the Merri-bek affordable housing model. I want to congratulate them for all of their efforts and their staying power, but also to the partners here, Havens Home Safe, and with the other body, which is, I've forgotten who was it? Holmes-Vic, yeah, Holmes-Vic can get a mention as well. I'll leave it at that. I think the amendments we're putting through here tonight to put it to the Department of Transport and Planning on behalf of the Minister are going to make sure that we get a design excellent example of what needs to be happening for future-proofing our properties, and particularly for people who are on low incomes. It's a really great outcome in so many ways. So congratulations to all involved. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Councillor Carly Hannan as seconder.
Thank you. Thank you so much to everyone who worked with Merri-bek Affordable Housing and to all our Merri-bek staff as well, and also to Haven Home Safe. I'm really glad to see this coming to the end of our term on council for this vote, and I completely understand those decisions around fast tracking. I think, yes, we have worked very hard, many of us councillors, on this policy proposal and on setting up Merri-bek affordable housing. But it did come with a lot of blood, sweat and tears, and a few times where, the vote was very stressful. So there's politics played at all levels of government when it comes to housing. But this proposal, I do agree and concur, is exemplary for local government. And I really hope we'll, actually seeing it get built and the sod turned will actually, I think, show other councils what can be done in this area. I wanted to just point out the that demographic that we're trying to work with, that single people and, ageing well in Merri-bek is one of the areas that we focus on as well. And we know that, affordable housing for, children and families is so important, but we also know that we have a huge problem of domestic violence and of women, particularly older women, becoming at risk of homelessness through when they have raised their children or found themselves in other situations that have then not led them to having secure finances later in life. So it's really important as a municipality that we think about every single demographic, and I really look forward to hearing more about who does get homed in this development and what else we can do as our next steps to continue this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carly Hannan. Are there any other councillors that wish to speak to this? We might move on to a vote then. All those in favour? And I can declare that carried unanimously. Well done. So, yes, we now have Rob up to tell us about the next steps. Thanks, Rob.
The Council has resolved to advise the Minister for Planning that Council supports the application for the construction of a 7-storey residential building comprising 39 affordable dwellings and a reduction of statutory car parking, subject to the conditions contained within the officer recommendation, noting that the Minister for Planning will be making the final decision on the application.
Thank you, Rob. That's the last item on our agenda for this evening. So thank you to those who have come along to attend in person. Thank you to anyone listening online. And thank you, councillors, for being here. And finally, officers for their work. I declare the meeting closed at 7:20. Have a good evening, everyone.